Hello, welcome to this week's group session. It's really a group circle designed to support whomever feels drawn to gather. We're going to focus on a group meditation. I'm going to explore your questions, including a question that has been asked of me for the last 11 plus years over and over again. And I've never really taken time to answer it. What is the universal plug? And then we'll go into transmission together, which is an opportunity to drop in, sink in, and have a deeper experience of embodied resonance, that state that exists underneath everything else, but that so often can be elusive, challenging to open up to. Welcome if this is your first time. If you're not currently subscribed to the channel here, I want to invite you to do so. You can click the link in the subscription, or in the description of the video. It's really easy to subscribe. Click the bell to be notified anytime I post a new video. And of course, anytime I go live. And if this video resonates with you, I invite you to give it a thumbs up. Let's get started, shall we? Before we do anything else, let's gather in our beautiful virtual circle together. And then I'll say hi to everyone who's checking in. I do welcome your comments, your feedback, and so on. Everyone who's commenting on my professional Facebook page, on my YouTube channel, and also on my Twitter feed. All of those comments come into me. If you're on my personal Facebook feed, I don't see those comments until later. So you'll have to jump over into one of the other feeds if you'd like your comments to be responded to during the live feed. And for everyone who's tuning in to the replay, welcome as well. I welcome your comments. I'll be interacting with you throughout the week as we move forward. And questions that I can't get to today, I will address next week or in a future time when we gather. We gather every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Wonderful to be with you all. Okay, before we do anything else, just invite you to set it all aside energetically, emotionally, physically, and so on. Close your eyes, begin breathing in and out through the nostrils, palms to the sky if that's comfortable for you. As always, please don't operate a motor vehicle or heavy equipment of any sort during this or any time we're together. And as you begin making that movement towards the interior of your experience, and at the same time, when you're ready, into the circle, energetically, I mean, of course. Finding that place that resonates most for you. Deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before in this day, all the way out to the count of 8. And just be with whatever is coming up, emotionally, physically, or otherwise. Sometimes it's a blank slate, nothing comes up. That's perfect. Sometimes there's discomfort or a sense of physical resonance or emotional dissonance or resonance or lots of other things. Just be with it, whatever it is for you, and just allow yourself to experience it fully. Another deep breath in and hold. As you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since you were born, all the way out to the count of 8. The purpose for this circle, as I see it, is to really serve each member of our growing community. And if you're here, you're part of the community. This isn't a paid thing. This is an act of service on my part. If you don't know who I am, my name is Ken Stone. I'm a spiritual teacher and an author and a spiritual healer. And I think that one of the ways that God expresses as me when I'm in transmission, which we'll open to here in just a few minutes, is allows others to have a deeper, direct experience of the divine within them. And so my motivation for offering this weekly community circle is as an act of service for you and for everyone who feels drawn to sit together, to resonate, to drop in to a deeper experience of who we really are. We can have some words about what that means and explore some ideas. That's always fun, but it's also, at least from my perspective, especially meaningful to have the experience of the embodied divine within you. Divine by whatever name, whatever your beliefs are and your perspective and so on. So we always open with a guided meditation, divine connecting breath, which we'll get to here in just a moment. And then we open into transmission, which is just a deeper way that God as me, let's say, or the divine working through me to support you energetically in having that deeper experience of who you are. Another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since the inception of your soul, all the way out to the count of 8. One of the things that I invite you to just notice, pay attention to, but don't look for it, in some, like you're trying to hold a microscope out and discover it. Just sit back and relax and notice it if it comes into your awareness, into your experience. This visceral expression, a tingling, a buzzing, a warmth in the body. Perhaps there are other ways that you experience that aren't strictly speaking body based, of it's sort of that outward experience of the inward innate connection that we all have with the divine. And when that comes up as we're moving through divine connecting breath, it's just a nice little confirmation of something that is already true, even if we're not aware of it. And so, whether you're able to recognize it or experience it today, maybe is interesting, but don't let it frustrate you if you're wondering, well, what more is there? Just be with whatever is unfolding. Notice the cue of breath, eyes closed, just in your mind's eye, or perhaps your imagination, in your intuitive awareness. The cue of breath, it serves you without any condition or qualification whatsoever. The breath comes in through the nostrils to the crown, down into the lungs. It exchanges, and then it's released. And each time you take a breath in, there's another unit of breath that joins that cue of breath that's just for you. You breathe it in, another unit of breath. And as you're sitting with this cue, perhaps observing it, becoming aware of it in whatever way you are, you might begin to notice a color beginning to infuse itself through the entire cue. Could be static, a fixed color, or it might be dynamic, a color that is changing. And if you're assigning the color with your imagination, maybe pick something that's not normally present in the body, except perhaps in your eyes. And then with the next breath in, just notice if you are with the breath from the perspective of the color, you move in through the nostrils to the crown and then down into the lungs. And then if you sit in the lungs for a while and we start sort of moving time forward a little bit more quickly, just speeding it up very gently, you'll notice that color begins to come in. And it's really this wonderful way of illuminating or illustrating the vector, the movement of the breath between the cue and into the body, through the nostrils, down into the lungs, through the lining of the lungs, into the bloodstream, and then eventually into every cell of your body. And there's a simple conclusion or statement we can draw from this, or observation. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. And just notice the levels at which you can feel or become aware of the confirmation of that statement, of the yes. Maybe you feel it rationally. You may know it. Sure. Oxygen, lungs, bloodstream, cells. Yep. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. And if you shift your awareness from that internal dynamic and become aware of the breath of the planet, you might begin noticing the breath of the planet ultimately is the source of that breath that is cued to serve you, but not just you, every single person, your neighbor's neighbor, and so on and so forth. Eventually, every single person on the entire planet. And there's something else we can notice. With each breath, you are connected to all of these people by your breath. And just notice as we pause, as that resonance comes in, or perhaps there's dissonance that comes up. Sometimes the mind says, but wait, I don't want to be connected to all those people, or I don't want their stuff, or I don't agree with how they look at things. But notice the breath is this very essential level that serves without any criteria or condition. So beliefs aren't transferred by breath. Perspective isn't transferred. It's just an innate level of support that serves every single person on the planet. That's the level at which the connection exists. There we go. And notice the return to resonance throughout the field of your being, throughout all the levels of awareness that come with that. And notice the breath of the planet doesn't just serve people, it serves animals and insects and rocks and dirt and trees and water and fish. Indeed, the breath of the planet serves everyone and everything. And so we can say with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything directly by your breath. We might even step back in awareness, just intuitively or in your mind's eye, and become aware of the thread that is spun between each individual and one another. So there is a thread of your color that extends out into the tapestry that is woven between every person. And you might even feel a little tension as you breathe in and a release of that tension as you breathe out. That tapestry is perhaps a visual representation or another kind of representation of that innate connection between every single person and every single thing. This beautiful expression of the innate connection. And notice how nothing is left out. The planet itself is included, the air, the clouds, the river, the sea, the sand, the dirt, everything, everyone and everything. And notice how the breath of the planet becomes the breath of the cosmos. For at the very edge of our atmosphere, that breath touches space and in turn, eventually every other part of space. And so we can say with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything throughout the entire cosmos, including that energy that underwrites everything else. We could say that energy that is the source of the color of thread that emanates out from you out into this beautiful divine tapestry. The divine itself, perhaps you perceive it as a light that initially is originating at a great distance on the other side of the cosmos. And then with each breath that you draw in, it comes closer and closer until eventually you become aware of those twin frequencies that together comprise and express as the divine light, the frequency of the divine itself and the frequency of perfect health. And not just perfect health as we understand it as human beings in all its many expressions, perfect health in all of its iterations, known and unknown. These two frequencies intertwine such that there is no separating one from the other. Where one is present, so too the other. That light drawing closer and closer with each breath until eventually it connects in, perhaps initially at your nostrils and then instantaneously throughout your entire body and being, be it a waveform or a particle, extending into each of the smallest aspects of you, an invitation extended. Come, return to your natural state of resonance and alignment, the artifacts of dissonance appearing to fall away and gather at the universal drain. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. For whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove the universal plug. All do the same. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. And with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything throughout the entirety of all of creation, known and unknown, including the divine, that light that underwrites and expresses as each of these individuated expressions, conscious and unconscious, sentient and non sentient, however we perceive them, everything is the divine. That interior process, those artifacts appearing to fall away and depart through the universal drain, that sense of resonance expanding organically throughout your entire being, because it is always ongoing. Whether you take your conscious awareness to it as you have now or not, The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. Let's begin. I always feel drawn into the silence when we get started, and my mouth is buzzing just like it did last week. As I shared last week, we explored a new format for our weekly gathering here, this Wednesday live stream. It seemed to work really well last week. I'm going to stick with that format today. We've done our divine connecting breath meditation. We've opened into transmission. I'd love to acknowledge and say hi to everyone who has checked in through all the various platforms where this is being broadcast right now, and just thank you all. Terry is saying hi. Thank you so much for checking in, saying hello, brother, hello, sister. And Julie is saying hi. And John Paduchek is saying hi. Brother John, great to see you. Gary is saying hi. So wonderful to hear from all of you. Angelica is saying hi. Feels like a gathering of soul siblings, this profound connection that exists, this innate connection between all of us, not just all of us gathered here right now, but all of us on the planet, this essential nature that is expressing in all of these beautiful individuated ways as all of us. It's so much, such an honor to be able to sit with you and explore and connect in this way. Terry saying your voice relaxes me quickly. Thank you for the opportunity to sit with you, Terry. Again, Gary checking in from Twitter. It's working over on Twitter. Thanks so much. And Roxanne saying, I'd forgotten about the universal plug. Yes. We're going to explore it today, along with any other questions that you have coming in. Anyone else who'd like to check in, I really invite you to say hi. On YouTube, I think the comments are off to the, let's see, it's going to be like this to the video. They're over here. They're off to the right side of the video on the screen. I think on Facebook, it's underneath the video. And truth be told, I'm not sure where it is on Twitter. I tried to look at the stream last week and forgot to mute the computer, and so that came in on delay. That didn't work well. In any case, I'd love to hear from anyone else that feels like checking in and saying hi. And let's do some exploring around the universal plug, shall we? So when I'm talking about the universal plug, I'm talking about this reference in divine connecting breath. And divine connecting breath begins as we open to, Sherry is checking in. Oh, Sherry, it's great. I appreciate the feedback. It's so wonderful to hear from you. I'm glad the format is resonating with you. It is with me as well. We begin divine connecting breath after we do some breathing, right? After we do the 2-4-8. Breathing into 2, holding for 4, and then releasing to 8. We're letting go of everything that has come before in this day, opening up to a more complete experience of divinity. If you want to think of it this way, the last breath that you release before you drop the body, before you die. Let me say that differently. Before there's a transition, is the ultimate act of surrender. It may not be recognized ahead of time, but in that release is a profound opening to something beyond our ability to imagine, because there is this necessity to let go of control, this necessity for the separate self to acknowledge I am not in charge anymore. And with the last breath, this is not a choice anymore. It's an obligation. There's no way around it. And it's interesting, if we explore the literature on near-death experience, we'll find really fascinating sort of common themes in that literature. And all of that is coming, from my perspective, out of a dynamic that originates with surrender. So if you just think about the circle of the breath, when we're opening into the circle, we are releasing all of that come before in this day, since birth and since inception of the soul, opening up to a more complete expression of divinity. From my perspective, divinity is like this fountain that is waiting to erupt through your entire being to, if you want to think of it this way, bless every aspect of your physical, your mental, your energetic, all the things that we could relate as you, with divine presence, with divine resonance, with the complete undistorted expression of divinity that you are. And it's only the only opportunity or invitation to open to that more fully, from my perspective, is that we just let go of more control. So that's the value, from my perspective, of what we're doing in those 3 breaths that we take at the beginning. And then divine connecting breath opens with this awareness, with the breath, the cue of breath, and so on. There's the beginning of divine connecting breath. And at some point, after we see the divine light moving towards us, the twin frequencies connecting into each of the smallest parts, etc., I say the words, "For whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove the universal plug." And the most frequently asked question that I've had over the last, I think I taught the first divine connecting breath class in August of 2009. So that's almost 11 years ago. First time I received divine connecting breath was in January of 2009, more than 11 years ago. Most common question, tell me more about the universal plug. And I'm always saying, well, let's focus on it someday. Today's the day. This is what we're going to focus on here. So I want to open the iPad. And you know what? One of the things that I've never really asked is, what is more effective from your perspective? So if some people could give some feedback to me, I'd really appreciate which view is better for you, because from my standpoint, it doesn't matter. Is it better for you if you see the screen like this and you see my drawing, or that's option A, and option B is this, where you just see what I'm drawing and now I'm not there. I've sort of had this idea that if I'm off on the side waving my arms around, that somehow offers some meaning to you all. But anyway, I'm going to start here. And based on your feedback, I'm happy to make an adjustment on that approach. And Lita, I don't want to ignore, I see you've said something. I don't know what it is because I'm in the groove here with the universal plug. I promise I'll come back around. Thank you for your comment. And I'll be present with it and share it, and we'll explore it. But I want to explore the universal plug first, and any other feedback about this is option A, this is option B. I'm going to go with A for now, because on the theory that if I'm waving my hands around, it offers some value to you all. But if anyone has a different perspective, please let me know. Okay, so here, first of all, I just want to kind of take you through this continuum of separation. Okay, so separation, of course, is an illusion. This is the separation here, this continuum of separation. Separation, of course, is this idea, this illusion that we are separate from ourselves. So that would be not connected here, and separate from one another. So not connected there. This is someone else over here. And also then separate from the divine, which I think most people have this idea that, God is above. I actually, when I received the Beneath the Sand download, what came in for me is this really clear expression: God is not above, God is below, expressing up through us. But anyway, whatever. I don't want to get into that right now. I'm just trying to talk about separation. So the illusion of separation would be, I'm separate from the divine. Let's say the divine's up here, and we'll put a little halo just to make it clear. There's the divine. Simple stick figures is what you get from me, but I want to illustrate the universal plug here, okay? So in the continuation of separation, at one end of this continuum is profound discomfort, pain that expresses in all sorts of ways that I think some people might identify as evil or dark. From my perspective, all human behavior fits onto this continuum, all of it. So I'm just going to put all human behavior. And there are different degrees, right? Over here, we could say is somebody who is murdering somebody else or committing genocide. And here might be someone who is feeling profoundly disconnected from themselves, extremely depressed or anxious, disconnected from their family or from a sense of any kind of divinity. And here, and I'm just trying to pick examples so you can, so that what I'm talking about on this continuum is a little bit more clear. Here might be somebody who is beginning to actually pierce separation, meaning they're beginning to realize, no, this is not a disconnection. This is a connection. This is an innate connection, not disconnection, but this is a, I'm trying to erase the squiggle lines here to say this is a fundamental connection that exists. So here's somebody who's piercing, and then maybe over here is somebody who is in a state of profound, I'm going to put them here, profound embodied resonance. And maybe over here is somebody, and what I mean by profound embodied resonance, someone might look at that person and say, oh my goodness, there is somebody who is completely integrated. There's somebody who is beginning to open to an experience of their enlightenment, of who they really are, of their innate expression of divinity. And maybe a little bit further on this continuum is somebody who is what I call an embodied messenger. That is to say, one who shares or is the embodied expression of the divine as them, such that no words need be spoken, but God's gifts as that individual are expressed merely in their presence or by their presence. So just some reference points on the continuum here. Okay, Angelica says, I like your hands. And Sherry says, option A does have value, comfort, and connection. Okay, so I'll consider that a solved issue for now. If anyone disagrees at any point, please tune in, or don't tune in. I mean, of course, please do tune in, but I mean, share in the comments. It's an interactive dynamic. Lita, I promise I'm not going to forget about you. Okay, so what does this have to do with the universal plug? Okay, here's what it has to do with the universal plug. So if we have this experience of, oh, let me say one more thing here, okay? I don't know how to draw a stick figure. This is not somebody who's, I'm trying to draw me over here. So I generally have a smile on my face. So I'm going to say, this is Ken. And this is you. Okay. And when we're sitting together, but I don't know, I'm not a good artist, so I don't know how to draw us sitting together. So we'll just be standing for the sake of this. But when I use the words, when we sit together, what I mean, you may actually be standing right now, you might be laying down or whatever you're doing, but that's what I mean when I say we're sitting together. We're sitting together now on this live stream, or we're sitting together now as you're watching this replay. There are classes and sessions that I facilitate that are audio only, that are live, and people participate in those live and through replay. We're sitting together when we do those things. There are people who listen to classes that I have offered in the past, and they're taking those as self-study. We're sitting together through those. And then I do a deep dive workshop, which is a virtual interactive workshop on video every other week. We're sitting together there too. So there are lots of different ways. And when my book comes out, from my perspective, we'll be sitting together when you're reading the book. From my perspective, we're in transmission in that dynamic. And where is that transmission? What is happening in that transmission? I promise this relates to the universal plug. But as you know, if you've spent any time with me, I don't know how to get to a simple answer on this level without beginning with the bigger picture, because I want to make sure that all the dots are connected. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a limitation on my part as a spiritual teacher. There is a very simple answer to what is the universal plug, right? The universal plug is an artifact of the illusion of separation that must be removed, or that I encourage that you remove, if you perceive yourself in any way in separation. And just as a reference point, I don't think I've ever met anyone, it doesn't mean they don't exist, who isn't in some way experiencing separation. So I'm not trying to weight the thing or say you got to do it. I'm going to explain it in greater depth here, the why behind it. But for whatever reason, I think I've got to explain it at this level. So hopefully this is supporting you. So when we're sitting together, some people might have this perception that there is something going on between my mind and your mind, or my heart and your heart, or my sense of being and your sense of being. But actually, none of these things are true, not from my perspective. I'm not sending you anything. Or maybe I should just put X's through this. This is not what's happening. I am not sending you something, not through the video or any of that. What's happening is when I am in my embodied presence, that is to say, when I'm having an experience of the embodied divine and I make a conscious choice to be in transmission, that is to sit with you in all those ways, then it's my perception that the divine as me, again, if we just accept the divine as above, although I really don't like that kind of imagery, whatever, let's just use it for illustration, is coming in through me and expressing in all of these ways, but most essentially through the level of being. This would be the level of feeling, and this would be the level of thinking. But it's actually not coming through me. This isn't even right. It's more that when I sit in this way, there's a resonance, and I'm not drawing this. Let me get a different scale here so I can draw this correctly. So here we are. This is what I was just trying to draw. We're now sitting together. Okay, so there's a resonance that is, let's say, the divine's being expression as me, that enlivens within you the divine expression as you. And you may experience that in many different ways, right? Some people might refer to being in transmission with me as being in a healing session or something like that, because what they're having an experience of is moving from, let's say, an experience dominated by thoughts or feelings to an experience that's dominated by being. And in this being presence it underlies everything else. It underlies the noise that comes in from thinking, or the distortions that come in from thinking, or that sense of separation from a thinking perspective, or that sense of separation from a feeling perspective, the head and the heart, for example, and then dropping into the hips. Here's the thing, though. If we're still in separation, the question is, and separation again is the belief or experience that in some way we're disconnected from ourselves, from each other, and the divine. If we're still in a dynamic of separation, the question is, how is that happening? And the first time that I saw a divine connecting breath, this is what I saw. Sort of. I've never actually drawn this. Probably should have practiced this drawing, but you're getting the raw feed today. What I saw was actually this kind of field like this, different from the traditional chakras. I'm just trying to draw. This is 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. These are the chakras. So, and the universal plug was hanging out down here. And what I actually saw was this image of, like, somebody changing the oil on a car, which, how does that relate to this? It didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time. And I actually, in my own noise and distortion, wanted to call divine connecting breath oil pan breath, which some of you will actually remember who were part of the community at the time. And a college intern at the filmmaker friend of mine's studio, who was working next to us in an editing bay when we were editing the training on divine connected breath, said, "Why don't you just call it what it is?" And I thought, that's absolutely brilliant. I was afraid to say the word divine at the time. I certainly wasn't using the word God at the time. So why remove this plug? What's the point? Well, have you ever had this experience where you're in a dynamic, a healing dynamic, or where you're in session with me, let's say, and you have this experience where things are shifting, right? And the question is, what is shifting and how is it happening? If I talk about this from the perspective of wholeness, the shift is the only thing that is shifting is either the experience or the perception of what used to be from the perspective of separation. That is, there's some disconnect between you, the divine, you you and yourself, you and others, and the actual experience of what is truly real, which, I mean, I can't claim any credit for that. It's not like I'm saying abracadabra, all separation be gone. And even if I were doing that, those of you who've studied with me will know, I think all that's going to do is just jam things up. It's actually going to complicate things on an infinitesimally complicated level. It's going to muddy up the water on an extraordinary level. And I can explain more about that maybe another day, because I think I'm taking a lot of time for this and I think it's helpful. So what happens to all the things that used to be in dissonance? That those words appear to fall away. This is from Divine Connecting Breath. The artifacts of dissonance appear to fall away. Like if we take a cell, or let's just take a thought that was previously, showing up as, I don't know how you draw a negative thought. Oh, you can't see the screen right now. I'm always doing that. Okay, there's something that's held in your field, let's say here, that is a negative, whatever that means. It's just an expression of dissonance. And now all of a sudden you become aware the light coming in, an invitation between each of the smallest expressions of the light and each of the smallest expressions of you, and the artifacts of dissonance. So, I mean, I don't know how to visualize this, but now let's say this thing becomes this and it's like this. Well, what happens to all this yucky stuff? Right? And maybe you're familiar with this idea. People will say, oh, I see all of this heavy stuff leaving your body and all of this type of language. And I'm not trying to say it in some condescending way at all. It's perfectly natural and normal to perceive it that way. Well, what I perceived in that initial sort of receiving of Divine Connecting Breath is that from the perspective of separation, this stuff goes somewhere. And the place it goes is here at this universal drain. And when the plug's in, all this sludge just hangs out down here. And when we pull the plug, this stuff leaves. And because we're enlivening all of who we are and beginning to resonate as who we are, we got to give some way for that stuff to leave, for it to depart out of our field. Now, I want to give you a couple of other illustrations of this, and then I want to see where we're at when it comes to this experience that we're exploring together. One of the people in the community who studied with me is an extraordinary intuitive. And she said to me one day, we were talking about this, and she said, Ken, I sort of feel like it's like being in a shower. And there's a drain at the bottom of the shower, and that's the universal plug. And so, of course, anytime I get in, I remove the plug. Makes perfect sense. I'm not going to even attempt to draw this picture of this. Another client I was sharing with, having lunch here in Fort Collins some months ago, said to me, because someone had asked in one of the classes, can you explain why we have to remove the universal plug? And she said, just off the top of her head, she said, you'd never go to the bathroom without pulling your pants down. And she started laughing, and I shared it in comments, and I've never shared it widely now, but here I am sharing it. Here's another way of thinking about this. In separation, there's a field that surrounds you that is here's a word that has a lot of charge, a lot of energy right now. There's this sense of sovereignty, right? There's a sense of you and everyone else. Oops. I'm not doing a good job here. I'm holding the pen like this is not a good way to write. I can barely write when I hold the pen correctly. The point is, everyone else is out here. But the thing is, where is God in this dynamic? God's out here too. And if we have this perception that there are things that are God and not God, right? And there's a line like this, and here's this list. Then we have this polarized dynamic where what is it? There's the part of me that is not God, and there's the part of me that's God. But see, from my perspective, this is a expression of separation. It's an artifact of separation that we perceive as things as being God or not God. if we think about what is the divine is everything. The divine holds the entire field. The entirety of the cosmos is here, held by the divine. It's everything is divine. And so in this dynamic, if we have this autonomy or sovereignty, we better pull the plug so that we can allow ourselves to come into a state of resonance. But once we're in a state where separation no longer exists, this is gone. I guess I should be erasing it like this with my finger. Well, anyway, I guess I could erase it like this. This is gone. Oops. Oh, here. Yeah, it's gone. There we go. And then it's you and the divine up here. What was that? That was this with a halo and everyone, and it's all one. Now, this may be a bit of a mind bender, but there's no sovereignty anymore. Who is sovereign? The divine. The divine holds the field. So as long as we perceive ourselves as separate in some way, there's a plug, right? And some things are held in my field or in your field, and some things are outside of our field. And if there's noise in here, if there's something that's held in dissonance, what happens? I mean, from my perspective, we're transmuting this. This is an illusion, and now this is real. It's just a source of absolute resonance. But when the mind is still held in separation, the question is, well, what happens to all of that stuff, the junk? Where does it go? Now, this is my attempt to try to explain something that I've been seeing intuitively to try to create a rational narrative for something that has just shown up the whole time. It's not like I sat here and thought about all of this before Divine Connecting Breath came in, and then I said, oh, I'm going to address this way. This is me learning and receiving Divine Connecting Breath the same as perhaps you learn and receive it. Perhaps the awareness comes in over time and so on. So there are questions coming in. Oh, Angelica is saying, what about a tuning fork? Yeah, a tuning fork is a really interesting illustration, right? Because in resonance, first of all, if we look at a tuning fork, this is they look more like this. They're made out of metal. But if we have a tuning fork that we tap on our knee and hold it next to another tuning fork that is at the same frequency, they both begin resonating. If we have a tuning fork and we put it against let me see if I could draw a cello or a violin, and we touch it to the side, then now all of a sudden this instrument resonates at this frequency, this same frequency. It's a really interesting example, right? And the question or the dilemma from my perspective all the time, oh, I'm doing drawings again that you can't see. Here is the drawing. Here's the earlier drawing. Did I show you this? I think I showed you this. And this is the expression of if what happens to the dissonance as it falls away. But here's the tuning fork expression. These two tuning forks are together. They resonate together. If we hold the tuning fork to a cello or a violin or a piano, or we just play music in a room, you'll hear on a piano, what does a piano look like? A grand piano. It's not that exaggerated, but it's something like this. The strings on the piano themselves will begin resonating based on the frequencies in the room, right? The piano is a really interesting instrument. Early on, I had this perception that being in transmission together was sort of like tuning up a piano. The problem with that metaphor is that you don't tune a piano up every day. But when you come into a state of resonance, at least initially, you're making a move along this continuum that I was describing earlier. Where is the continuum of separation? Back here, right? You're making this move from some experience of separation into an experience of your wholeness. And there are a couple of different experiences of wholeness that are available. I mean, just at a categorical level, right? And in that movement, there's this another word that we could use is entrainment, right? The question is, are we entrained from a perspective and a dynamic of separation, or are we entrained in having an experience that is dominated by our wholeness? And so one of the things that is happening when we're opening through divine connecting breath, and this is actually something we were talking about in the deep dive last week as a circle, one of the members of the group said, you know what, divine connecting breath really doesn't resonate anymore because it kind of moves me into a state of dissonance. And that makes sense, right? Because if you're not defaulting in separation, there's no point in going through a visualization or a guided meditation about realizing that you are not separate, right? It's to say, well, you are separate, but if you're having an experience of not being separate, it's meaningless, right? Which is why in the more advanced circles that I facilitate, we don't even really do divine connecting breath. Divine connecting breath has a shorthand version where I just say the river is flowing, be the river, be, or just nothing. Maybe I just say, for whatever remains in separation, you pull the universal plug, I'll do the same. Let's begin. Boom. And then we just move straight into transmission. There's no need to make the transition from a default perspective in separation, because the entrainment or the embodiment, the integration that's happening for that group, those individuals, is now moved over into a place where separation has already begun to be pierced in a more substantial way. Okay, so I want to come back to this. If anyone else has questions about this, I'm happy to dive in whatever depth, but I'm realizing I've gone on for some time now about the universal plug, and maybe it has value to you, maybe not. So if you have questions about it, jump in. I want to bring up Lita's question here, which I haven't even previewed, but I'm going to put it up. I loved your email this morning about leaving the planet as a symbol of going home. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Lita. Thank you for your love, energy, and effort in trying to help us awaken to our true divinity. Yeah, thank you. If you're not on my newsletter right now, if you're not receiving that to your inbox, let me see. Yeah, this will get you you can go to this kenwstone.com/newsletter. Just put your name and email address in. It's free, and you'll get the From My Heart each week. And yeah, that's the best way to receive it reliably. So thank you for your feedback, Lita. I really appreciate it. Let's just sit for a moment and see if any other questions are coming in, any clarification is being sought around the universal plug and divine connecting breath. The succinct summary is, while we still have this perception that there is separation on any level, the value of the universal plug is paramount. When we come into transmission, that there be some way of relieving the pressure of the system. That is to say, some way of opening up to a bigger experience of who we really are. That those things that appear to leave our field. Now, once we're integrated, where is it going? Nothing is beyond us. The totality of the entire cosmos is contained within each of us, which may sound like a bunch of nonsense depending on where you're at in your spiritual journey. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at me. I'm laughing at the way that I talk about these things, because I'm perfectly willing to admit that some of the things that I say, or maybe much of what I say, doesn't mean a lot at certain developmental stages of consciousness. But once we begin opening up to these deeper experiences of who we really are, we begin to realize, oh yes, I understand this pendulation that's going on here. And it's not so much the understanding from a thinking perspective, it's the experiential understanding. That is to say, I recognize, oh, when I open to a deeper experience of who I am, I'm more present to myself, to others, to divinity within me. There are resources that are available that express as me that I'm not even consciously aware of. People might reflect on things, and I'm speaking as you now. I'm not trying to like give voice to my experiences, Ken. I'm saying, if I'm channeling you, you know these things are true. Maybe you've never articulated them this way, but you know when you're present, that's true. There are resources that are available to you and people you're with. It's extraordinary what begins opening up in that experience. But then sometimes something happens, or we could be super present with a child or a loved one. Think about maybe you've been with somebody who's in their transition, who's in the process of dropping the body, making a transition from the soul animated in the body to the soul now having dropped the body. We call it physical death. If you've been present with someone in that dynamic, there's an enormous gift that individual is offering in their transition, and perhaps that you're offering as a witness, as a participant in your presence. Or maybe you felt or are feeling now, remembering that transition, that dynamic of opening up to a deeper experience of the Spirit, of the Holy Spirit, of the divine, by whatever name. And so if we recognize when we're in a dynamic where that experience is what's happening, maybe separation begins to fade. And the more we do that, the more we sink into that experience over and over and over again, the sort of less critical the dynamic around the universal plug is, and the more integrated, that is to say, the more available to us in every aspect of our lives, that level of presence is. And it becomes something that's constantly a resource, primarily for each of us individually, but also then when we interact with others. Sometimes it's easy to get turned around about that and think, oh, I'm going to integrate so I can serve others. But the first recipient of our integration, the first recipient is you. The first recipient of your integration is you. Okay, I don't see any other comments coming in. So let's drop into a deeper experience of the transmission, which is happening when I'm talking, but it's a much deeper experience is available when I set aside the idea that I even need to have my eyes open and smile at you or engage with you. My smiles are all very genuine, as I'm sure you know, but it's still different for me. For 11, 12 years now, I've been exploring and sharing God's expression as me without a camera on me. And so it's much easier actually for me if I just close my eyes and pretend there's no camera here, because then I can be more fully with the experience. And if it's easier for you to have your eyes open and be looking at the screen, well, by all means, have your eyes open looking at the screen. My invitation to you is at some point to close your eyes and to be present with whatever's unfolding within you. Because as wonderful and extraordinary as it is for us to have this connection in this way, with this camera connection happening, where you can see me sitting here in my writing studio in Fort Collins, Colorado, as I'm with you live as this is unfolding or on the replay, still at a deeper level is this experience within. And that's what I want to sink into to close our time together today with. And to make that transition, let's take a deep breath in together, shall we? Deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, just let go of everything I've said. The words, however inspired, however clear, however distorted, however they resonated or didn't with you, none of it matters. The words are not important. In fact, your understanding, my understanding, none of it is important. It's not the most important thing, not by a long shot. So as you release this breath, we'll just push all that stuff off the table. Free ourselves from whatever encumbrance may have come with the sense of understanding or not, and just drop into the deeper being state. The river is flowing. By that I mean, if you were to sit next to a river in your locale near you right now, if you held an intention that the river flowed downhill, lo and behold, the river is flowing downhill. But guess what? Drop the intention, and now you've got less going on, and still, meaning you don't have to hold it in your awareness, you don't have to manage your thoughts. Still, the river is flowing. And if you turn your back on the river and forget of its existence, maybe block the sound of it out of your ears, still the river is flowing. Walk away, forget about the river's existence in this peaceful, profound experience of sitting on its banks and being with its flow. Still the river is flowing. So too with each breath. You are connected to everyone and everything, the divine, the light, the twin frequencies, connecting into each of the smallest aspects of you on every level, known and unknown. The river is flowing. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. The river is flowing. Be the river. You are the river. Be the river. The river is flowing. Be. The thing is, sometimes something creeps up, right? It's sometimes the silence is difficult. It can be hard. The mind wants to think about something, or there's a discomfort that comes up in the body. And I just invite you to, just for the sake of our time together today, just accept that whatever's coming up is being enlivened by your embodied soul, by divine presence within you. And that enlivening presence enlivens everything. All the things that are actually who you are is an undistorted expression of the divine, and all the stuff that's not, that's still held in separation, the distortions and so on. And let's just say, just for the sake of simplicity, the distortions express as emotional stuff, sadness or whatever the emotion is, and or anguish or grief or whatever, and also of physical discomfort. It might be profound excruciating pain in your body. And as you embody, as your soul comes home, as you come home to that experience of the undistorted expression of who you really are, it's just not just animating all that you really are, but all that other stuff to be transmuted, to be burnt up by, from the Christian perspective, we could say by the embodied Holy Spirit, the fire of the Holy Spirit, the embodied divine mystery, the unknowable, unknown presence. There we go. Can you feel that resonance in your body right now? My hands just started buzzing like crazy. That resonance, it's like, it's just a way of what is being, of feeling the outward expression of the inward connection, of the inward linkage between all the aspects of what could be described as mirrors, the mirror of your body, the mirror of your mind, and so on, everything coming into that state of alignment and resonance. It's the invitation that we recognize first with divine connecting breath, the light extending, inviting, and then the experience of that invitation, of that restoration, that return to the experience of who you really are. And so if there's noise coming up, if there's dissonance emotionally or physically or on whatever level, the opportunity is to feel it, really feel it fully, as I support you energetically, as we sit together. And that is how that noise, that dissonance will be transmuted. The alchemy is taking place between embodied divine presence and your embodied soul, and you feeling whatever it is that you're feeling, just allowing yourself to feel, allow yourself to be consumed by it. And if it gets scary or it gets difficult to stay with, you can remind yourself with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything, the divine, the light, and the river is flowing. Beautiful, beautiful work. Hmm. Oftentimes, as human beings, we have this idea, I don't want anyone to see into the deep, dark recesses of who I really am. Because if they could see that, they would know I'm no good. There's something really fundamentally wrong with me. That's the projection on the part of the separate self, that belief that there's some darkness there. Or if we see that darkness in others, it's a projection of what we see or what we're aware of within ourselves. And what may resonate in other people's shadow is how it can be expressed. That's one of the ways of talking about that. And one of the ways of doing shadow work or being present with that dynamic is to sit in resonance, to sit in embodied resonance and feel whatever is coming up. It may not feel like you're doing any work. You might be thinking, well, what intention should I be holding right now? Hold no intention. Remember, the river is flowing no matter what. So you're off the hook. You don't have to hold any intention. You don't need to tell God what to do. You don't need to tell your body what to do. Your body, your soul, all these pieces of you, they're designed to resonate and operate perfectly as one. And not just you as an individuated expression, you as an aspect of the whole, the totality of humanity, the totality of divine consciousness. It's all designed to work as a whole. And so when we're having an experience of feeling separate or caught up with something, the opportunity is just to be with that and also with this deeper experience of who you really are. And then it'll work itself out. You don't have to manage it. The divine flow is taking care of everything. It's, for me, what is so compelling about the imagery of the river, but it's not like I dreamt up the river thing. I mean, it just presents an image, in visuals. It's just, and then it becomes so clear, what is the life cycle of water on the planet? The river. What is our spiritual journey? We're seeking the spring, the origin of the river. Where is this resonance coming from? And we find it, the headwaters, and then we find a glacier that's releasing water down the hill. And then we think, oh, it must be in the glacier. And then we see snow fall on the glacier and it turns into the glacier. And then is it the snow falling from the heavens or is it the cloud? And where did that cloud come from? And it came from over here in the sea, and the sea evaporated and it became the cloud. And where did the water in the sea come from? It came from the river, it flowed down to the sea. And it's not all these different expressions. It's one expression in these many ways. The life cycle of divine expression, the life cycle of resonance, the life cycle of our awareness of our spiritual growth, all from an illusory dynamic, right? We're becoming something more than we are. We're not becoming something more than we are. We're just remembering who we are through these deeper and deeper experiences of who we really are. What a beautiful gift. What an extraordinary opportunity. What a privilege to sit with you, to sit in this circle right now, to feel this, to explore it with words and also in silence. Hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. A couple things that I think are really important just to reflect on here as we begin kind of wrapping up a little bit for today. If you're thinking, oh, I'm going to hang up right now or I'm going to stop watching this video, wait, before you do that, make sure you return the universal plug, knowing the transmission will come to a close. And then just a few reflections. If you'd like to stay with me through the end, I certainly welcome your presence here as we begin wrapping up our time together for today. This realization of, and I think essential opportunity for us to acknowledge the experiences we have in separation and their validity and their importance in our journey, in our work spiritually. I don't mean just you and me, I mean as human beings, the process of becoming more aware of who we are, those experiences in separation are essential from my perspective. And then also these experiences of who we really are, where separation has been pierced and it melts away. And what a privilege and honor it is to have this opportunity to sit with you. I'm very grateful for this. If this is something that is resonating with you, there are a couple things I want to ask you to do. First of all, if it resonates with you, well, give the video a thumbs up, give it a like. If you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. In the description on whatever platform is a link. And when you click that link, it says something like subscribe to Experience the Divine Within. Click the link, and then that subscribes you to the YouTube channel. And then if you click the bell to be notified, you'll be notified anytime I post a new video or go live. If you're not currently receiving newsletter, I gave you a link to do that earlier, kenwstone.com/newsletter. And if this experience resonates with you, I really invite you to share it. Invite your friends, your family, your clients, your community to participate. It's such an honor to share this expression, the divine through me, with you, to support you in uncovering the deeper experience of who you are, in remembering who you are, but maybe not leading with the thinking, but leading with the experience of that. And there's also an invitation. If this resonates with you and you'd like to go deeper with this work, I want to invite you to be part of the Deep Dive Circle. It's an ongoing virtual workshop series, and I've set it up so that it's super accessible. I mean, the financial exchange is $97 a month right now at this time here in, I guess we're at the end of May 2020. I'll put a link up here in a second. If you want to be part of this, I'd love for you to check it out. And uh, but most importantly, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to connect in this way. And I want to open my eyes and just thank the folks that are checking in and saying hi. Oh, Tim Nolan. Tim, it's been forever since I've seen your voice, seen your name on a feedback form. It's so good to see you here. I'm just going to put a quick link up about the deep dive. You can go to deepdiveworkshop.com if you're interested in doing that. And I can put up a link here on the screen. I'll post it here. Get my little keyboard, put it up. Tim, thanks for saying hi. It's so good to hear from you. Feel like we've been walking together for a long, long time, and it's wonderful to sit with you in this way too. Okay, plug all the way in, transmission to a close. I look forward to sitting with you again a week from now. And for those that will be joining us on the deep dive Deep Dive 6, the next workshop, is a week from tomorrow. Takes place, I think that's the 4th of June. Deep Dive 6 is on the 4th of June. We got a bonus session, a Q&A session on the 6th. However, we're connected in all the ways we are. So grateful for the opportunity to walk, sit, resonate with you. All right, that's it for today. Bye for now. Peace.